Dope. Okay. All right, cool. All right, people, I'm Garrett. This is Making Movies, and today we are looking at a new, more brand new than new. We have a first. Zhiyun, or Zhiyun, as it's more commonly known, currently has a Kickstarter going for this. This is the brand new Smooth Q2. But this touts as being the smallest phone gimbal on the market. I have looked at phone gimbals before. Some of them have been on this channel. This is definitely smaller than those. The build quality of this is surprising. One of the things that I have seen with a lot of smartphone gimbals is that they're all made out of plastic or really cheap material. It keeps them lightweight, and I'm sure that keeps the cost down on most of them. This is an entirely metal construction. It has this rubber finish here on the handle, but everything about this is made out of metal, which is not only different, but this is something that I think actually is really, really cool, because one of the things about using a smartphone gimbal to record is that presumably you're going to be on the road. You're not in a studio environment. You're not in something that you have a ton of control over. So the size is great because, of course, this packs down much smaller than most. But for me, I think the build quality is what really, really matters about this, because I feel like I could throw this in my bag and be just fine. Not that you should treat your stuff poorly, but in comparison to a lot of the other ones, which are made out of all plastic, this carries a lot more water, figuratively. Aside from the build quality, one of the things I like is that it has this locking mechanism here on this axis. So, you know, it doesn't wobble around, but it's pretty easy with the hand to be able to pop that up as you need it. This obviously is the most funky looking thing of the whole deal, because it looks nothing like what should hold a smartphone. And the reason for that is because of this. They have gone and engineered a quick release for your phone. So this clamp obviously sits on my phone like that. I already have it balanced to my gimbal. If I get a call or a text, I can take that, put it back on. I don't have to then reposition my phone every single time. And it works pretty seamlessly. You keep this in the unlocked position, you put it right on here, slide it down and lock it, and then I'm already ready to go. To power this on, all you do is you hold down the power button. You'll see the lights blink across the top. You hold it down, then when you let go, it then comes to life on its own, just like this. The controls are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You have PF, L, F, and POV as your settings across the top. You press in on the joystick once, that's what changes the mode. If you double tap it, it will go back to the previous mode that you were on. So if you want to cycle through the modes left to right, it's a single press on the joystick. If you want to go back to the previous one going right to left, you would then double tap the joystick and it would move the other direction. So the first setting is PF, which stands for, I believe, pan follow. The instructions aren't in English, so I wasn't entirely sure. Pan follow means if I rotate my wrist like this, it will pan with me as I move, but it won't adjust the tilt. So as I move up and down, it will stay with me just like that. L stands for locked, which means no matter how I move, it will always stay exactly in that same position. F stands for follow, which means as I pan or tilt, it will tilt and pan with me. And then the most interesting feature in this one, which I haven't seen in any of the other gimbals, is called this POV. It works very similarly to follow, but the difference is as I move down, it'll tilt down and tilt up, and then if I pan, it'll pan like that. But also if I adjust my angle, it will rotate with me, which this lends itself to getting some really cool and interesting shots, because you'll be able to get some really interesting fluid movements that would be somewhat atypical, because of course we can actually change our horizon line, and it's kind of mesmerizing to play with. The other thing that this has is infinite roll. There's a lot of different modes that people call this in. They call it like the inception shot or the vortex shot or the whatever. If you tap it again, you'll see POV will then start to blink and my phone goes vertical because it is waiting to go into presumably like flashlight mode. And then my joystick, all I have to do is I have to rotate what would normally be the pan, and then it will go through and it is able to perfectly replicate those kind of same style inception shots. This also has Bluetooth in it. So it transmits a Bluetooth 5.0 signal, which, you know, your smartphone can connect to. The cool thing then is that this record button then works not just in the ZY Play app. The Play app, at least the version that I've got on my phone, doesn't see this yet, probably because it's not out yet. But I can still connect to this with the Bluetooth, and then in my standard video or photo app, I can punch this button and it will then take a picture or press record on my video, which is really awesome to have that functionality built into the gimbal and not have to mess around on the phone itself. This has an insane battery life. What is the battery life on this thing? It turns out I still don't know Chinese. This has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, meaning that it can get up to 16 hours of operation off of a single charge. Or if you put it into resting mode or standby mode, you can get up to 17 hours. Standby mode, by the way that you get into that is if you just hold down the joystick, it will then let all of the motors go limp, like so, while still being on. And you'll see that all 4 LED lights will be illuminated when it is in standby mode. And then if you want to get it back into functioning mode, you hold the joystick button down again and it perks right back up, back into life. My phone, when recording video for any extended period of time, drains super quickly. So what they have done is they've actually put a micro USB port up here, kind of right next to this quick release plate, that you can actually charge your phone off of. So this battery is big enough that it then can supply juice to your phone. So even if it depletes the battery by half, let's say, and you get 8 hours of shooting, that's 8 hours of shooting with this and that. I don't know if those numbers are right, but I'm just kind of going with something that seems extreme to me, because I won't need 16 hours out of this, but I'm gonna need as much time out of this as I do this if I plan on shooting anything with this. Even though this can sit on its own, which it obviously is doing, it's a little top heavy for my taste, so I would probably get the tripod just to give you a little bit wider base for this. You can then also get a charging cable, which will go from micro USB to lightning port, allowing you with an iPhone to have a very small cable that will take you from one to the other and charge it, allowing you to have lots of juice all day. If you're using their app, you obviously get a lot more control over the communication between the two. They do things like motion controlled time lapses, active tracking where you can select an object or a person or a thing or whatever, and then it will control it to keep that in frame. One thing I want to test with this has a payload cap of 260 grams, which is just over a half pound. I love shooting with my Moment lenses, which is something that we have talked about before. The size of the phone, obviously, because of how big my phone is, and these lenses and the case that mounts those onto those, that's above the recommended max payload. I don't know if it even is capable of it, because I was looking into this. All of the smartphone gimbals have a relatively similar payload max. I wonder if the size has something to do with it, or if it will function. So I'm gonna put my phone back in its case, and then I'm gonna grab one of these lenses. This is the telephoto lens. So this is a 58 millimeter lens. I love this lens. It's really good if you're shooting people or portraits or that kind of thing, and you wanna have something that's a little more normal. So there's this setup here. Okay, so that works. Seems to function fine. Ooh, there it is. Okay, so if I come down too far, it starts to wobble a little bit here. I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear this? Yeah, okay. All right, so that's what's happening. Okay, let's try one of the other modes. In lock mode. So if I go here, fine. There's that wobble. It starts to wobble. Okay, full follow. Okay, fine and all of that. Oh, it's totally fine in this mode. In full follow mode, that works just fine. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Okay. All right, so that's good to know. So it must counteract whatever the issue is in the other two shooting modes. What about full point of view mode? This has got to look so weird, me just waving this around. Okay, so it works fine in that. I am well above the max weight of what this thing is certified for, and I'm not saying that you should do that because, of course, it's above what they say you should, but you can. At least in the follow and the POV modes, it seems to not have issue with it, and having the option for those lenses does make it really, really intriguing. I'm not getting anything for this, by the way. This is just a really cool piece of tech that I think is super interesting. So if you're like me and you back Kickstarter stuff all the time, I'll put a link below to their Kickstarter. You can back it on there. Like this video, hit subscribe, and as always, I will see you in the next episode.